Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be back. I've had a few good days rest, and I'm looking forward to this morning gathering with some of my church family online. But I wanted to record this first as a way of kicking off my back to work experience. Back to school tomorrow for my boys and my daughter, who have varying degrees of academic challenge ahead of them in the next couple of weeks. And we are at the beginning of another 3 weeks of lockdown, which may well be extended beyond that. Be surprised if it doesn't. So we're in the same situation we've been in for some time, and I hope that that's going as best it can for you in every way. It's sunny. It's due to be sunny for the next week or so. It's not due to be that warm, but at least the sun will be shining. And I hope that you get out and about, and that even if that's just putting your face outside your back door or your front door to say hello to somebody, or just to breathe some fresh air, that you do that, and that's good for you. I trained to become a minister in the late 1990s through the back end of the end of apartheid, and then the beginning of a transition into democracy in South Africa. And one of my colleagues, a good friend still, who trained with me, is called Gary Rivers. Gary's now one of the bishops in the Methodist Church in Southern Africa. And I think he himself would probably say that he didn't expect to be in that position when we look back, or 20 years ago now, to the year we were all ordained. But when we were training, I went to visit Gary once, just to hang out, and we went to go and fetch something from someone that he knew. I can't remember what the details were, but we needed to go to somebody's house and knock on the door and say hello. And we got out the car, and he said to me, "Come along, come along." So we went up to the door, knocked on the door, and this man opened the door and spoke to Gary and said hi and gave him something, and I thought, I know this man. I know this man. I don't know where I know him from, but I know him. And we got back in the car, and I said to Gary, "Who is that man? I'm sure I know him. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like I know him really well." And he looked across at me and smiled and said, "But wait, there's more." And the penny dropped immediately. When television shopping channels arrived in South Africa, or that kind of digital marketing through television advertisements to buy everything from vacuum cleaners to dieting supplements to everything, a bit like in the UK, where there are just a couple of men really whose voices predominate on ITV and BBC when it comes to the kind of background presenting. There's a very particular voice on University Challenge, a very particular voice on all the ITV programs, the X Factor, and Britain's Got Talent and things like that. This man, I forget his name, but he was the voice of almost all of that early presenting. And that phrase, "But wait, there's more," was central to those channels, to that selling, because not only would you get the vacuum cleaner, but you'd also get the umbrella hat or the something. There was always an extra little bit, and you didn't expect to get this, and you thought it was a bargain. But wait, there's more. There's even more, and then there's more, and often the more and more got more and more ridiculous because it was nothing you really wanted or needed. But that was the phrase. But wait, there's more, and it was repeated 2 or 3 times in the course of advertising something. Today's gospel reading for the church, using the lectionary that we do, the sort of list of readings to use Sunday by Sunday to make sure that over a period of time we spend time with most of the Bible, so that we don't just do our favorite bits. That lectionary reading today in the Gospels is from John chapter 20, and it's one of my very favorite stories in the whole of Scripture, because it is the story of there's the guinea pigs just going mad in the background. It's the story of doubting Thomas, who isn't with the disciples for some reason when Jesus appears to them the first time. And he comes back and they say, "He was here, we saw him." And Thomas says, "I don't believe you. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Until I see him, until I touch him, until I'm in the presence of his wounds, I won't believe it." And so when Jesus appears again, he, particularly in John's Gospel, says to Thomas, come near and touch my wounds and see that this is me. This is me. Now, it's not so much, I want to say it's not so much that Jesus comes back and allays Thomas's doubts that I love. Because I think the way Jesus does that is an incredibly respectful, gentle, and wonderful invitation to be in the first part of the story where we're not sure and we have doubts, and not just about faith, but about just about anything. That phrase, "But wait, there's more," is a really helpful strapline to write across almost every single part of our life in some way. It's a curious thing that the churches in the UK certainly, and I think probably around the world in some ways, that are growing the most or the most consistently are those who are the most sure about things. Those who have faith, and I don't want to be unkind, or unfair, but those who have faith wrapped up into a quite neat proposition that says who you are and where you are and what God did and how God did it and what it means and how you must respond to that in order to become loved, saved, and then part of this precious, sometimes elite band of people who are God's children, who are Christians, who are true Christians, perhaps, because some churches would go so far as to say everyone else is wrong and we're the only ones who really know how this works, and this is exactly how it works, and we want to tell you that, and unless you agree with us, basically you're going to hell. What an awful, awful thing to say to any human being. You have to be just like me, or else God will never love you. Wow. So Thomas is a helpful person in the church's life. He's a helpful person in all of life, because he, in a sense, invites us to, in every single part of our lives, think about the more that we don't yet know, and the fact of wanting our own experience of growing into things and discovering things and believing things and expressing things, that we don't have to just go along with other people's expectations or other people's experiences or other people's stories. I mean, the Bible itself is not something we just have to absorb as it is, just digest and seek the truth in. It's something to wrestle with, something to question, something to be comforted by, something to be disturbed by, because God is horrible in some parts of the Bible when we read it as historically accurate. So in all of those stories, in all of our stories, and everything that's happening in our lives right now, but wait, there's more. And I love that about the Thomas story. Not just that Thomas has the courage of his convictions, however anxious or frightened he may feel. Think about the courage it would have taken him to, in this band of people who only have each other and nobody else really, who are afraid, who are locked away behind closed doors, that he says to his brothers and his sisters, who I'm sure would have been there, "No, I'm sorry. I wasn't there, and I need to be there when you have that experience, for it to be something that I can trust and I can stand on firmly and securely in some way." I love Thomas. I think he's one of my favorite biblical characters for this story alone. And the discovery of the more isn't just about some more that we can know, more than we can find. It's also about more in ourselves. One of the things that has been my consistent experience in my own life and talking to people who've done the same, of being an endurance athlete. I use those words guardedly now, but having done marathons, having done triathlon up to Ironman distance, I did a 100-mile non-stop canoe race around canals in the UK. I've done all kinds of things like that. I always meet myself in ways I didn't expect. And most of those ways are really affirming. Most of them are looking back on those experiences immediately afterwards, and then during them even, and then even from further back. They're experiences of discovering that there was more in me than I thought there was. There was more tenacity. There was more courage. Sometimes I look back on the moments when I think I failed because I didn't finish something, because I had an injury or something, and I realize that there was more wisdom in me than I realized, because I was willing to stop rather than carry on and properly hurt myself. To say, you know what, the finish line and the medal are less important than the fact of honoring the injury I have and the need for my body to be able to tell me that things are not okay, and for me to listen to that. Something that's easier to do as I get older. But when I was younger, it just felt like failure in a lot of ways. But wait, there's more. There always is going to be more. And today, as we in the church's life reflect on the story of Thomas and his doubts, and the way that doubting Thomas has become a sort of put down in our language for some time now. Actually, it's probably gone out of fashion because people don't have the reference anymore quite so strongly. But doubting Thomas. Great. I love doubting Thomas. I love the Thomas who says, but wait, there's more. And you may have found them all, but I need to find them all. I need to experience them all. I need to discover them all. I want more. I believe there is more. But I'm not going to just take someone else's version of it. I need it for myself. So in yourself, in your life, in your relationships, in your body, in your will, in your mental health, in your in everything that makes you you, in your faith or your struggles with faith, you're identifying with Thomas in all of his doubts in some ways. The challenge to all of us in our sometimes slight but sometimes quite overt smugness at the things we're absolutely sure about, that we'd stake our lives on, but may not be the end of the road in terms of there being more. That all of those things are there in you, and they're there in me. And who knows who will be, I've said this a few times, when we come out of this coronavirus pandemic. Who knows what our society will be. What is quite clear is that we've measured the more in terms of acquisition and lifestyle and possessions and ease and technological solutions to things and our ability, it would seem, as human beings to add more and more complexity and cleverness to our lives, when in fact maybe the more that will come out of this coronavirus time. For those of us who have the privilege of surviving, and I don't say that with any alarmist sort of dramatic effect. Those of us who come out of this, what will be the more that we will have discovered? What will be the more? Maybe those things that have just lingered as discontent in us for a long time, that however busy we've been and however full our lives have been, so many things have felt quite superficial. And there is more. And that more is authentic experience of ourselves and belovedness and wounds in the story. Quite dramatic, up close and personal. And belonging, and all of the things that give us cause to celebrate our common humanity at a time like this. So today I want to say 3 cheers for Thomas. I love him. I think he's great. I think he is my favorite disciple by some distance because of this story and the way that he invites us all. And Jesus honors his doubting. And he invites us into our own doubting, our own discontent, our own, maybe even before we become discontented, just our own need to be reminded that there will always be more. There will always be more. So there'll always be more of me. Well, for as long as coronavirus lasts and I continue to do this on a daily basis. Who knows, depending on how long it goes on, I may take a few days break again and give you all a bit of peace and quiet. But you can, of course, just always switch this off. I've discovered my son Matthew watches about the first minute and then he just ignores the rest. Do what you wish with this. But be open to the more that is in your life. And the funny thing is, we don't really know what it is until it arrives. It's not that we manufacture it or we know it. It just, beyond our limited views, understandings and experience, something intervenes and jumps out in front of us. And then there is more in the offing. And I want to say, because I think that is the power of God, that is always a good thing. That God is able to take and work with us in whatever experience we have and whatever we go through, and create within us more than was there before. We become more than we have ever been, and we have more to offer to ourselves, each other, in the world than we've ever had before. So bless you on Sunday, the 19th of April, it's first Sunday after Easter. Enjoy the sunshine, whatever you're going to do today and in the days ahead. I will record again tomorrow morning, and until then, I want to just leave you with a short prayer. Loving God, help us all to be open to there being more in ourselves, more in our lives, more in love and more in you than we have yet encountered. And for all of that to be good news to us and to those who share our lives. Amen.